Oh my goodness. Look how proud of himself he is.
He's like, okay, fine, you guys got me.
I love that.
So
All right, so fill me in on how the last week or so has gone.
One of the random things with majors, I mean, because we have 2 dogs.
Yeah.
So when we feed them, they love to eat each other's food
Yeah.
and not their own.
Okay.
And I would love to get to the point where I can leave their food out all day, because it's like, if he's not hungry in the moment, I have to pick it up, otherwise
Yeah.
the other dog's gonna eat it. So if I could start getting them, like, every time he tries to eat the other dog's food, like, you know, that's definitely one of the big ones.
Yeah.
That would relieve of pressure.
Yeah, you can certainly correct if he's going for the bowl, but I think the method of picking it up is actually really good, because if the dogs don't eat it all at once, we definitely want to bring it up so they're not grazing all day, and obviously they'll eat each other's food. So I'd continue doing that. I don't know if it's ever beneficial to leave food out all day. I know that like it'd be a little bit easier for us, but then we don't closely monitor as much like what they're eating, how much they've ate, what else we could tack on. So for now, I'd continue, like if he goes over to the other dog's bowl, come here, bud. Hi. If he goes over to the other dog's bowl, you can certainly give him that no marker and give him a correction just to get him out of that bowl. But a lot of it would be also management for the times that you're not, like he sneaks into the kitchen or he sneaks into the other dog's bowl. It's just keeping it up for now. And this is just a way that we'll start introducing a second form of pressure to him, and ultimately the goal would be that he just works off of the Ecollar and we kind of graduate from the prong. Obviously this week we'll spend some time on both so we can really teach him before we start expecting him to know what the Ecollar means. So the way we do it is just kind of lower and slower as he's getting the message. But for things, like behavioral things like jumping or barking, you can begin to correct on a single tap. So if he's losing his marbles at something, barking, you can tell him no, and you'll press your button one time. And we'll go over his working levels today. I can kind of give you a ballpark of what I'd start correcting for. Sit. Good. Oh, good boy. And when I go back to release him, if I am using that motion around, again, I want to come right back into his space. Okay. To release, so he's not starting to pattern in that my movement backwards is what's his release. So if I always like make a habit of saying the okay word here, he's going to be like, oh, well, every time she moves back, she wants me to get up. So I just like park myself next to him. Good. Okay. All right, I'll have you try a couple of the sits. Long continuous pressure, again, is just holding down. The single taps would be if he goes to jump on you. Because you can see a 6 should be kind of barely doing anything for him in the continuous stage. We want him to feel it, but not be like, oh my God, what is that?
Right. So when he was standing back up, just immediate, that immediately do the double correction?
Yeah, so he's starting to understand exactly what is causing the pressure to come on and exactly what is causing the pressure to come off. So I visualize it by his butt. It has to be on the ground for that pressure to be released. And sometimes we don't catch it immediately, but as fast as you can, apply that pressure and get his butt back onto the ground. So he's like really like, oh, I can win at this. I just have to kind of do this specific thing and I'm good. Yeah. And just like getting him to chill out a bit. Any questions on the sit itself?
No.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I'd practice it this week in the way that we're doing it with continuous. Feel free to adjust your levels if you need to. If you're working on it, I suggest working on it inside first with lower distractions. If you take it outside, you may have to find yourself going a little bit higher. I don't want it to be like he's very tense when he feels the level, but just perceivable enough that it's doing the trick, getting him back into the sit. My goal would be that he's starting to understand what stim is. So when he feels that stim, he kind of naturally goes into that sit, and we're not having to do a mechanical prong correction as much where we're like holding the pressure up. Yes. At first, spend the next couple days making sure he's really solid and understanding of the prong, and e-collaring the same thing by applying both at the same time.
If, like, let's say I'm ever doing it in the house, should I exclusively do it with leash on? So keep that collar and keep the double on?
Yeah, for now, in this stage, as he's still learning, and he's a puppy, so he may be in a session and he's like running away, and then we're trying to get him back. So spending some focused time on him, I'd say 15 to 20 minutes a day. You could even be like a 10 minute, doesn't have to be that long, but getting him to sit a couple times with that prong pressure and the e-collar associated, just so we're making it really routine to him.
Right.
If we take the leash off too soon and he doesn't sit, and then he's not understanding what the e-collar means, he's gonna be like, what do you want me to do?
Right.
So this is just a way of kind of slowing it down, working at his pace, and having him really get the skills down before we can expect to take the leash off.
Right.
Eventually, that is our goal, is that we're gonna work him with no leash on and have him still be able to listen to us, and our e-collar does the communicating. Feel to you?
Yeah, at the end there, definitely
Yeah.
a big improvement.
Yeah.
When I first took him over.
Sure. I continue applying the things that we talked about today. So continuous stim, get him really solid on that walk. So every time the criteria is exactly the same, so he can be like, okay, if my butt passes this position, then dad's gonna offer that correction. So we're making it more routine and consistent to him. So try to remain really consistent about where you're correcting. If you're feeling like he's starting to get ahead of you, use your gut feeling and reel him back in. Sit, apply the same way. So he's starting to really understand exactly what you mean when you apply that pressure.
Let's say like I'm walking him, you know, doing the continuous corrections. Let's say there's like a bunny or squirrel that he like really tries pulling on. Do I switch to a correction, or do I just turn it up continuous?
I would, at that point, I think
It's like a split. It's almost a split decision thing, you know?
Yeah. My inclination, like the way I found most success, is to offer a single tap for that sudden movement towards something, because we could do continuous and really help him understand the position-wise, but because we're working a little bit lower, we can't always combat that really like sudden excitement like a bunny. Right. So I will tend to like just turn up and give him an initial single tap correction for that really quick movement forward, and then get him back into position, kind of adjust down, get him back into position. But it kind of helps him like with that impulse control.
Real still.
Yeah.
So, my Honda is not getting a fair trial.
The whole house smelled like McRib. It was disgusting. It made me sick. I hate it. Fuck the McRib. Fuck it. Yeah, they are.
So fill me in on your week, what's been going on?
We've been doing bed, doing this a little bit here and there.
Okay.
Every time I put this on her, she seems to just like behave right away.
Yes,
So
yeah.
she's like, it's on.
Yeah.
And going on walks and sitting and just, yeah, trying to do all of those things.
Okay, nice.
Yeah. that's
Hello.
Been focused. Come, sit.
And how has she been doing in the commands, like with applying the e-collar? Has that felt awkward to you? Has that felt good?
Yeah, it is a little awkward, but, and sometimes I'm like, I don't know if it's on, and so I have to vibrate it to make sure. But, yeah, it's been pretty good. And the commands, and it's more when she's like jumping on people.
Okay.
Or, like, I had it on her when we've been riding in the car and just trying to jump out of her thing.
Oh,
and
yeah.
put it, and she has sort of figured out like, oh, okay, I'm doing something wrong, like you said.
Okay.
So,
Yeah.
but, yeah. But
They're
she's
so
mostly like food
cute.
driven, so you know,
Nice.
she'll sit and go bed and all those
Yeah.
things. And give you a treat.
Okay.
But yeah, so
Okay, so pretty
progressing pretty well.
good week.
Yeah.
Yeah, so today I want to revisit the commands we did last week. We worked on sits and beds, primarily, I believe.
Yep.
So this week, I'd like to tackle a little bit of the walking too.
Okay.
So we're just going to take a look at her sitting, and we're going to change the way we use the Ecollar this week as a corrective tool rather than the teaching.
Okay.
Because I think she's had enough time in the teaching phase where she's going to start to understand it. So the next level of our Ecollar training would be to start correcting like we do for jumping or something.
Yep.
She may be doing bad. It's just giving our no marker. So today, when she gets out of the sit, we're gonna mark with no and give her a correction at an appropriate level and see if she's responsive to that. We'll just jump right in. Sit. Good. Make sure it's an appropriate level. Okay. You still chewing? Sit. Remember, that was our problem last week, too. No. Sit. So I'm marking with no when her butt gets up and then pressing my button just one time.
Okay.
Like last week, we were pressing and holding. This week, we're going to start telling her that she did the wrong thing and give her a correction. So that we're at a 13 now.
Just a tap.
No. Sit. Good. And then while I'm right here, I'll say my no first. So she's indicated that she's made a mistake. No. Correct. And then I can say sit. So I'm kind of just going in a circle. No. Sit. So she can really understand the information in a very digestible way. She's still very young, so it's a lot, no? To ask a puppy to like be patient with us, but this week will be a little bit about channeling her inner patience. No. Sit. And I can still use my prong to guide her in, because she might not be quite ready to go completely off her prong. Good. I'm pausing here for a moment. Okay. Good. Sit. Good.
So when she does that, and she does like some little correction of moving around, like is there like a place you want her to be
Okay.
eventually? Or is she still up?
Yeah. So we're building her up to be able to be seated wherever we'd guide her to. So typically it would be in a heel position, but it really can be anywhere. Sit. Whether it looks a little bit different when we add it in different scenarios. So if we're on a walk and we're asking her to sit, we'd like her at our heel in our space. If we're having her, no, sit before a meal, that could look like she's a little bit in front of us. So positioning exactly of where her body is in relation to ours. I just want to be close enough that I can touch her. No. And that she's generally where I'm kind of guiding her. So obviously, like when we're inside, coming from this angle is a little bit easier than to like go and have her right at my heel. No. So we're giving her kind of the gist of the command before we're adding direction into it. No. Sit. She's like, this is really hard, lady.
Yeah.
Okay?
I like the bigger space too, because there's more distractions.
Yeah. Brooklyn, Brooklyn, Brooklyn. Sit. Good. And then I'm not too worried about her adjustments or her scooting right now, because I just want her to kind of remain in that sit. So if she gets up for a split second, no. Just following through if her butt completely leaves the ground, but if she's butt scooting, I'm not going to correct for that at this stage. Okay? Sit. Good. Okay? Good. Good girl. Look. Yeah. So we'll pause here for a moment. So you notice just a couple things is I want to move a little bit slower when I'm walking her.
Okay.
So she can really get her pace down and focus in on us. Sometimes our inclination is to walk fast, and then she walks fast, and then she gets distracted and blows up ahead of us. So I don't want the whole walk to be nagging her and poking her and being like, no, you're supposed to be here. So making it a little bit more fun by incorporating some treats when she does the right thing. It's a really good way to get her engagement. Good.
I usually have her treats when I walk.
Yeah.
So.
Not that we need to be dependent, but it definitely helps. Come. And I think a good method, come here, is that tap and turn. So when she goes ahead of me, I'm going to tell her no, correct, and I'm going to turn. And I think that helps her kind of be like, oh, I'm supposed to be with you. Sit. Good. Seems safe. I think that walk, we dealt with a lot of different things coming at her, and despite all of that, I think she did very, very well. It's not perfect, obviously, the first walk, but we're not expecting perfect. We're expecting improvement.
We've just been perfect every other time.
Yeah. At some point, we can't be perfect. We gotta learn. We gotta learn from our mistakes, huh? And I know it felt a little bit strange correcting her when her butt was passing, but it's really good for her to start to understand this. So our goal is not to have to manage the walks as much, and our goal is that she's just with us and in a nice heel, and then eventually we're gonna be like, oh, we don't even really have to be correcting her constantly, because she's just gonna start to understand and know.
Okay.
Any questions on the walk?
No. It'll just be like
did
fun
a
and awkward
lot.
and have to do it.
Yes, yeah. And it's like getting over that hill of the awkwardness of being the leader to your dog. Good. She's just... But really, we're seeing our long-term goal is we really want a dog that's obedient and well-behaved. And we got to get through some of the awkward stages.
She won't remember this later on.
No.
Brooklyn, come here. Sit. Oh.
Yay. I'm proud of her today. I think work on the sits with just the single taps. Find an appropriate level for her that's working. I think that level is going to come down a lot when you're in the comfort of your own home, something she's used to. But don't be fearful of going to the level you've got to use. Again, we're seeing what the response is rather than getting focused on the number.
Yep.
And I think she's done awesome.
All right.
Do you feel okay about what we did today?
Yeah, that was good.
Okay, nice. I think she did awesome.
Cool.
Hi, Papa. You're extremely cute. So we're gonna start with a little bit of a walk today before it gets pitch black. Okay. So my goal is to kind of have a nice loose leash where I'm not feeling like I am tug-of-warring with him or constantly micromanaging or poking him. I want him to enjoy the walk, but I want to teach him how to enjoy the walk where he's not gonna be nagged. So I keep my criteria a little bit simple at first. And when we go back to it, we can clean it up and make the heel a little bit tighter. But just for now, no butt passing. It's good to start the walk a little bit higher than we normally would go. So we're kind of setting right off the bat before we even left the parking lot. Like, this is how the walk's gonna go. It's a recipe for success on the walk, is if we can kind of get the corrections out of the way in the beginning. Not that we're not gonna correct them through the remainder of the walk, but just kind of being like, this is what's gonna happen, and have him care enough about those initial corrections that he's like, all right, I believe that you will go that high if you need to. So then we can go a little bit lower with our levels. And our idea is that the heel is nice and relaxed, that we don't feel like we're constantly managing him through the prong. And it just, we're setting our boundary kind of very clearly to him now. So he's like, okay, I can avoid the correction if I stick in mom's bubble.
And then are we like strictly just using the e-collar and like no really pull on the the collar?
Are we still kind of giving it a tug and doing the e-collar at the same time?
We're going to just transition to correcting via e-collar this week, so it's not wrong if you have to feel like you're using your prong as your second line of defense, but I want to start to graduate him from having to have that mechanical thing on him that we have to apply the pressure. Now we have a way that we're going to communicate with him that we don't have to be physical or as physical. So the prong or the e-collar will replace the prong. So that's our purpose of today's walk, is just having him ease into a nice calm walk and setting our like spatial boundary. So obviously, since he felt a little bit of a higher correction, he's not maybe his usual bubbly self, and that's okay. He needs to start to learn how to feel that correction and how to move on from it, because we need to be able to set rules here and at some point get a little bit stricter with him. Doesn't mean the levels can't come down, but just to kind of set the boundary for him. And the body language will get a lot more loose and happy as time goes on, and he's able to really understand how to avoid the correction. Yeah, is that possibly a thing that you'd like now? How did you feel about the walk and like starting with a little bit of a higher level? Did that feel okay to you?
Yeah, I think it's kind of smart because I think like you said, I think like once he felt that, he like really was like, okay, I'm gonna just like move
Yeah.
and, you know, because I mean typically he like walks maybe at a slightly faster pace, but like hardly ever really passes us.
Hi. Okay.
It's like we're treating him like a toddler, I feel like.
Yeah.
Like immediately cutting him off instead of being like,
Yeah.
I'm gonna give you one more chance.
Exactly.
And he kind of like is like, okay, how far can I push you?
Yeah, and then we give that first chance and he's like, ooh, I could get away with it. And then we get the second chance and he's like, haha, I'm feeling lucky. And then that third chance is literally like when we'll see something come out of nowhere and he explodes into the reaction because we haven't kind of provided that structure to begin with. So it can seem counterproductive to start with those higher levels, but it's excellent to set the tone of the walk before we even leave the parking lot, or if you have something like that at your house at a driveway, just so we're like, you're not going to pull me on this walk, we're going to take care of that right away, and the rest of the walk you won't get corrected as long as you are staying within my bubble. And that helps him to kind of focus in on your pace and focus in on what you're doing, which is highly stimulating to a dog. Still can have his sniff time. You just are gonna kind of decide it now. So instead of him peeing on every pull, I want you to start giving him a little bit of a correction if he veers off to go smell without being released. Once or twice if he has to go really bad. I'm not gonna correct him if he's peeing or pooping. But I try to get ahead of those things by starting my walk with a little sniff break so I can check the box. I'm like, okay, I know my dog doesn't need to go. We're gonna continue on. We'll do a sniff break every other block or so. So what your walk should look like now is about 80% structure, 20% sniff. Allow him that sniff time. I think it's really crucial to a dog to enjoy most of their walk by ending it or beginning it with a little bit of sniffing. Get him acquainted with his environment. So the purpose of today's like single tap was just refining where his walk's at and getting him really comfortable with walking. And then next week, and I think one of your lessons is a little bit earlier in the day coming up. We can really start to push him around other dogs. But we wanted to get the walk refined so we can be clear of our expectations before we expect him to 100% understand the corrections for breaking the heel. Likely dog reactivity is going to be a little bit more intense, and we're going to try to correct it at whatever level we can get away with, but enough that he's starting to understand what we want from him. I think Hazy learned today about the same thing, about kind of remaining in the sit. And Hazy's just like such a puppy energy that he was like working on some barking today, and he killed it. So maybe before you know it, the two of them can get together, and we'll work through some socialization with him. But I'd really like to get him into a social. I know we talked about it last week, but I just wanted to make sure that we cover all our bases before we put him in the social. And we'll likely start social on muzzle. That's either next week or the week after. I just want to make sure that we got all of our obedience down. And we get used to the e-collar. Okay, yeah, I'd say focus really on your walking this week and any positional, like lunging out of your position with your higher levels. So whether that's just he crawls out of your position by accident or he sees a squirrel and lunges out of your position, you're gonna give him that correction, get him back into the desired place, and that will start to just reaffirm to him the bubble. Hi guys, we just finished that session with Papa, and he's made a lot of good progress pretty fast. That was our third session. Upon reading Papa's paperwork and some things we discussed with the owner, is when Papa was adopted, they said he'd likely always have to be walked on a harness for the rest of his life. That was the easiest way to control him. And today we very much proved that we don't need a harness. And harnesses don't exactly help the root of the problem. They just make it easier for us to handle the dog that's pulling. So we were able to completely remove the harness the last 3 sessions and get Papa walking like a champ just with the Ecollar communication. It's really essential to not always take the opinion of the place you adopted your dog at and do your own research, as these owners did. They love this dog to pieces, and they knew there was a little bit of a better way. He was on muzzle today because we're introducing the e-collar. Previously, he had some redirecting issues when he would see another dog, not due to the e-collar, but before they even started e-collar, he would just get really amped, turn on his owners. So they muzzle conditioned him, and that's why you saw the muzzle today. As you see, he killed it on his walk.